Welcome to the American Freethinker live call-in podcast every Wednesday, 6 p.m. The phone number to call in is 810-348-5807. The question is it working? Just like I have to do at the beginning of each show, I have to find out whether or not I am working. It shows YouTube is good. I don't usually have people on YouTube to actually be able to confirm that, but it shows it's live, so we will assume it's working. Facebook. If anybody's on Facebook, please let me know. Audio is good. Boy, on my page, I show there's actually 2 live streaming pages going. I don't know what that means, but so audio is good. It says you are on. Okay, I guess I can go ahead and switch over to video now. Let me make sure I'm all properly. By the way, this is the new emblem. I wanted to point that out before I went on video. This is my new emblem thanks to my sister Kathy, who took the old emblem, looked at it, and made some changes, sent it back, and said, "What do you think?" I kind of like it. I like it with the color in there. Eventually, when I get a shirt, that will probably be the picture that'll be on the shirt. Would love to get some feedback. Let me go ahead and switch over to video now. There I be. All right. Let me switch back to my Facebook page. So if anybody can go ahead and type in that the audio is working. I'm not getting any bad reverb or anything. I'm pretty sure I got all my audios turned off so I don't get the reverb. So if anybody's on there, to let me know that once the video kicks in, there I am. Oh gee, almost forgot, didn't I? There. Especially after my haircut, when I just get that haircut down to the nubs. All right, so now I see and hear you clearly. Fantastic. Thank you, Kathy, as usual. Ralph, I hope you're still on. Hope you didn't leave me yelling at me to get started. I know, it takes a while. I was actually getting ready to start up with a whole new video, new website, trying to get everything amped up to the next level. I know it seems kind of weird. I've been off, seems like 2 or 3 weeks. It's all intermittent. Well, I had some family stuff, so I decided, eventually I'll get back to the Wednesday. I'm going to keep at it, keep getting better. I should be here every Wednesday now, 6 p.m., barring anything weird, but should be able to get back on schedule. Eventually, throughout the next months or so, hopefully I will have a new website put up, more streaming possibilities, including going on to more sites, such as Twitch and Periscope, and I'm just going to go. I'm going to keep going and going and going and putting it on more platforms, and I may get one person per platform. I don't know, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to get a website where people can go to. I'll have some posts on there, some of the data that I collected, probably some daily stuff that I'll put on there from the different information that I listen to during the week. And also the store. Yes, I know it seems silly. It's not like I have thousands and thousands of people watching and calling in and to where I can actually have a store, but I like the emblem. I think it looks pretty sharp. I think it's something that would look good on some shirts, some t-shirts, some mugs, stuff like that. Yes, please, if you happen to get on here, please like it and share it. Even if you kind of go in and off or out in and out of watching it or listening to it. My voice is really good white noise, I've heard. And I have the face for radio. I know it's kind of an old joke, but. And I have been paying attention more and more to Louder with Crowder. If you haven't watched his show, get on there. It's pretty funny. It's kind of comedy wrapped up with political. But anyways, back to the show again. 810-348-5807. Yes, mega. Exactly, Ralph. And until I get people to call in, I will continue to try and look at the comments because I actually enjoyed it. I think it really adds a lot. I know it adds a lot of fun for me to watch it. Looks like YouTube is still going. See, the problem is if YouTube doesn't connect and I don't get YouTube going, I can't download my video to my computer so that I can have it, for as long as I want. Because Facebook, for whatever reason, or at least I haven't figured out how, I can't download my videos off of Facebook. So that if someday, God forbid, I get big enough to where then Facebook actually cancels me for some of these horrible things I say, I won't have those videos that I did that YouTube didn't connect, which I think the last one it didn't. That's why I'm trying to get my own website. I'm trying to get a website. I'm trying to find a website that I can go to that will save the videos as well as restream it to 3 or 4 or 5. I'm willing to pay for it. I'm going to keep looking for it. As of now, I have it. I was actually doing that today. Got running behind quite a bit. But normally, I look back on my last podcast and do a little looking back at it. Maybe revising some things, adding some things. But to be honest with you, the last one, I wish I could have downloaded it. YouTube wasn't working. But I actually enjoyed it because it was basically just me ranting about our culture and how it's getting destroyed. And I really liked that one because that's actually what I wanted to do with this whole podcast is me ranting until someone calls and checks me on what I said. That's really what I like. But I did want to go ahead and get on there and start putting some more pictures on there, some backing up some of the proof that I had, and when that is necessary. But until then, until I get more platforms, can put video on and do better at getting the pictures on there, well, this is what we got. And I'm going to keep going and keep getting better. But anyways, I'm ranting. Like I said, I do tend to rant. So what I'll do is open up my trusty paperwork here. I'm trying to start doing this so that I can keep in order. A little bit more in order so that I'm not just completely off the rails and ranting constantly. And if I get comments, I want to reply to those comments. And like I've said before, you don't have to do it just on the topic. Like for instance, today was just going to be basically a step-by-step, side-by-side comparison of socialism versus capitalism. Remember, I'm more topic-based. I'm not daily-based, what's going on today. But I will put in what's going on today with the topics. And it's going to be socialism versus capitalism. But then I decided, well, with the whole union thing going on, and I've spent, ever since the strike started, just getting into constant Facebook battles back and forth with union members and union family members because when they put things on there that doesn't sound, it's like, I don't know. I would kind of ask them about it, and boy, do they get mad. I'll get into that when I start into my whole unions and what they're about, but they just do not like people talking bad about the union. And so I get on there and I say, yeah, well, what about this? And why are you striking this time? And why does that make sense? And I try to put it under the scope of the big picture, okay, of unions and how they are bad for the country, what they're actually all about. especially national unions, how they're right along that line with socialism, which is why I decided to add unions to this topic. So, before I get into it, like I said, I don't have anything as far as talking about the last podcast, so I'm just going to go ahead and get right into this podcast, which is unions and socialism. Now, I have some facts, of course, data, of course, but mostly it's going to be me ranting about how the Democrat Party is moving closer and closer to, well, they've always kind of moved towards socialism right from back in Wilson days and FDR, and they're the ones that really got us going that way. But they've always kind of hidden it. They've always just kind of, no, that's not us. We're just for the small people. We're just for the working people. We're just whatever. While they're hiding their true feelings about socialism versus capitalism, or big government versus small government. And I don't think they're doing that as much anymore. The left has just taken over, just like it did back in the Wilson days and the FDR days. And again, the Republican Party, they're basically just there to try to stop them. They don't really do much. I'll get into that as well. But so, like I said, today topic. First, I'll discuss unions. Just give a little take on that. I'm not going to go hardcore. I want to make sure people understand that I'm not. Well, let's just get right into it. Make sure there's no comments. Let's see, no comments yet. All right. Remember the phone number. Go ahead and call in. It's been working pretty good, unless my uncle calls, and for some reason it won't. It doesn't work, which is really sad because he always has that next level of intellectual conversation he adds to it. I'm more meat and potatoes. He's more intellectual. So, but he can't seem to get the phone calls to work. All right, everything looks good there. How about YouTube? Yeah, it looks good. Still live. All right. If anything goes bad, please go ahead and mention it, and I will be back and forth. All right, first, unions. The thing about unions that I want to make sure everybody understands right off the bat is just because you say you are against unions does not mean you are against the working people. That you are some pro-business corporation, hate the little man. I mean, it's just silly. It's rhetoric that the Democrat Party and the unions have basically ran in order to get, again, their groups. Union is just another group like anything else to hate the other side, hate the Republicans. And so, no. And I kept trying to do this on Facebook, kept trying to tell these people, no, it's not against you. I, being a free market capitalist, believe that every worker should get as much as he possibly can get. But that stops where the business is willing to give you. So in order for you to make more money, you increase your worth to that company. It's just common sense. And what union does, and these are some things that I kind of put down as far as why I'm really against the whole union idea. Not just its connections to socialism, not just that, but what it actually does. Because the worker, when you talk to the actual factory worker, it's impressive. I mean, they will come at you, guns a blaring, and they won't stop. And all they concentrate on is one thing. Unions are our savior. The company doesn't even seem to matter to these people. And I kept trying to put that out to them. Okay? I kept trying to say, how can you just beat down the company that keeps you employed and pays you a really good wage and benefits throughout the years? The big three have always been that way. They've always paid that much higher than normal income. And so why are you beating them up? Why can't you praise the company And they won't. It's amazing. They just beat down the company just so hard. And then unions are just, they're everything. If it And that's what unions do. They basically push the worker, and almost to a point of a religion to them, that without us, the union, you would be nothing. You'd be penniless. You'd be peasants. You'd be working out in the farmyards, picking potatoes. And that's literally what unions do to their workers. And over time, that's what they've done. Now when you go in, that's what you're going in, realizing, oh, unions are the greatest. Unions will protect me. Unions are the company is horrible. The company is evil. The company is just big business wanting to take advantage of me, the work. And that's the way it was. Constantly on Facebook. And I'm just trying to talk to these people to get them to get a little bit off the union bandwagon and a little bit on the company bandwagon. Nothing. Most of them not. Not all of them. Trust me. There are more and more union workers that realize what it's about. They understand it. They know that unions are, especially the big national unions, a little company that allows a union to come in, maybe it's a little better. I'd still say you're pretty stupid as a company to allow it, but whatever. It's your company. But these big national unions, they just don't care about the worker. They really don't. They care about their own power. And so what they do, and that's the main thing, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to force that disloyalty. They're going to break that loyalty that used to be between companies and the worker. And any union worker that is honest with themselves, they won't deny that. They know that. They feel it. And then what they do is they make them think that unions are everything. So if the union says jump, they say how high. They don't even question it. The leaders. And the leaders are the radicals. Okay, they're the ones that are just radical unions. Okay, they're the ones that you see out there with bats and chains, because that's another thing unions do. That is a lot like socialism and communism, is that in order to take power, they know that there has to be some danger involved. There has to be some, if you speak up against us, we will beat you down. And I know when I worked in the factory, many years ago, I don't even know, 20 years ago, did it for a summer. My name got drawn out of that hat. I was one of those lucky ones in this area that get to go during the summer program, and then they work their butt off. They shut up. They don't talk. They just work so that they can get into the factory. And that's what they would do. And so when the workers would come by, give them their name cards and say, swipe me out. And then in a couple hours, swipe me in an hour after lunch, swipe me back out. Okay? And then they don't come back the whole day. That happened constantly. And they would do it. They were more than happy to do it. Me? No. I told them, where to go. Didn't make me a very friendly guy in the area. They would physically try to come at me. I had my dad who worked for the EAP, the guy who basically saved their jobs whenever they wanted to go drinking or go in prison. They got their job back because of him. They would go to him and say, listen, we respect you, but tell your kid that when he goes out to the parking lot, he's going to get jumped if he doesn't watch his back. That's what they do. That's what the union will do. Of course, that didn't stop me from doing it. As a matter of fact, I amped it up. And this goes to my next thing about unions is, and I don't want to tread lightly because I don't even know how to do that, but they push poor work habits. It's like they force it on them. And eventually they get used to it, and then it just becomes that way. And what I mean by that is, one thing that got me in trouble when working in there is I was on a line with 3 people. We would start working, and we would run out of a basket. I was the first guy. My basket would become empty, and I would look over, and I would hit whatever button to let them know, hey, we need more, which it shouldn't even have gotten that way. He should have already been there before that got empty. But hey, it is what it is. And he wouldn't come over. they weren't nowhere to be found. The forklift was right there, so I would jump in the forklift and I'd take out the basket, put the next basket in, and we would keep working. Or all it would need would be a button to push on the machine over there whenever it would go bad. We would call the electrician, getting paid God knows how much money. It would take him half an hour or so to get down there. He'd come down there, push a button, and leave. Well, they wouldn't come. They weren't coming. So I walked over and I put the button. Well, that didn't make them very happy. They didn't like that. You couldn't even clean. You cleaned your area, they would yell at you, because you're taking someone else's job. Which is another big thing on them, is that's not my job. And anytime you work in a union area, a union factory, or you work at some of the Rite Aids where it's union, they love to say that. It's not my job. Not my job. Go somewhere else. Oh, lunchtime. I don't care if we have customers. I don't care if we need these parts done. Doesn't matter. Lunchtime. Union. That's what it said. And so it pushes that poor work habits. The other thing they do, and this goes into the disloyalty to the company, is they really make it feel like they're a band of brothers. And when you're talking on Facebook to people, man, did that ever come out. I mean, that's all. Yeah, brother, tell him, brother. Yeah, brother. Yeah, we'll get together. They really form this like a biker gang. Like the Crips and the Bloods. I mean, it's literally that intensive for the ones who are really into it, of course. And they push that. The unions want that because it's all for one. That's all it is. Doesn't matter. That's what unions are all about. It's not about freedom, or it's not about what an individual wants. They're not there to help the individual. They're there to help the collective, the union. That's what the union is all about, their power. And the only way they can have power is if they brainwash these workers into basically forming a gang with the union as the boss, or a mob. And if you go up to some of these, and you go ahead and try to be a scab and go through, and you'll see what I mean by mob. All right, let me make sure I can't be on Facebook when I'm sitting here reading my information. So let's make sure that we don't have anything on here. I hope everything's still going good. It looks like everything's still on. Remember, anybody, please go ahead and make comments as you will. I will be back off and on to the Facebook and YouTube page to see. All right, nothing. Everything's good. I'll keep going. So, to recap, yes, unions, they push the workers for disloyalty. They push the unions that to be like a band of brothers, and anybody who speaks out against it gets beat down. And they tried that with me. I wouldn't back down. They never did anything. That not my job mentality. The other things, and I know all this. I know this because I worked on the line and I know it. Well, nowadays, that was the old unions. So this was back in the old cold water plant, the one that's tore down now, just grass. But, that's the old union. That's the old union. They don't do that. No. Sure. I'm sure they don't. The other two things that are towards that poor work habit is the whole idea of seniority. Seniority rules. Now that in itself sounds great, and it is. It of course, you're there longer, absolutely. But you shouldn't be there longer if you're a crappy worker, and that's the problem. They actually do not promote the idea of, if you work harder, if you prove you are more valuable, then you will get the better jobs. When the better jobs open up, they'll come to you. Nope. Right through seniority. Doesn't matter. Worse worker, constantly getting in trouble, constantly having to go to his union rep because the manager's saying one thing or another. And they push it right to the end. And when that EAP, which is what my dad was, would always make sure they have their job back. Would always, whatever they did, it didn't matter what they could have been drinking on the line. It didn't matter. Now, maybe it's tougher now. I haven't been there for a while. Maybe it is better now. Maybe you can't drink on the line, get caught, and keep your job. But I doubt it. I have a funny feeling that they still have EAPs and they still keep their job. Back in the day, people could go to prison, come back, keep their seniority, so that if a job opens up, they get it before the guy who's been there for a couple years less than them but works hard. Please argue that. Please tell me how that makes any sense. But that's a union. That's the union idea. Because, again, it's not about how hard you work, or they don't want people to succeed. They don't want people to move up. Okay? Stay in line. Stay in your row. Know your place. That's the union way. And again, like I mentioned, they're almost virtually impossible to fire. Obviously not impossible. And again, maybe it is a little better, but I doubt it. Trying to fire someone who has a union background, union reps, those union reps, they don't care. They don't care what's best for the company. And that's the problem. It's not a cooperative. It's not unions and company coming together to make a better world for everybody. If that was the case, I might be on board. But that's not it. It's the unions fighting for the union power. And in order for the union to be powerful, they have to convince the worker we are everything. And as long as you just follow our rules, boy, we're going to give you the best life possible. You're not going to have to do hardly anything if you don't want to. We'll keep you working, because as long as you are loyal to us, we're loyal to you. And I could just keep ranting about this, but it's such an easy target. The arguments for the unions, and yeah, I mean, I heard them all. I read them all on Facebook. Well, if it wasn't for the unions, we wouldn't have any of this stuff. The unions help every other worker out there. The unions, they keep those wages flying high, and they keep them going higher, and they raise everybody else's wages. And okay, first of all, let's just use some logic here, okay? How does your wage in a factory affect the grocery store and what they're paying their workers? How? See, the way it works in a free market, businesses make so much profit. They can pay people based off their profit. Yeah, some companies are kind of jerks, and they want to make just an unbelievable amount of profit, and their workers very little, barely enough to work on. Those companies tend to go by the wayside because their employees become worse and worse, because other companies come in and say, hey, we're going to pay more. That way, the workers will come to us. The good workers will come to us. The bad workers can't get those jobs because they're bad workers. So the companies that don't pay anything, they keep bad workers. Eventually, over time, their products become worse and worse. The smarter companies that are paying more, they're having better products, and they can still keep their price down because now they sell 1,000 instead of 100, so they can keep their prices down that way. That's free market. It's got nothing to do with you union workers, what you make. Okay? It just doesn't. The grocery store doesn't look at the factory worker wage and say, oh, wait a second, they're making this, so that means we have... No. It's not the way it works, which is the way it should work. Whatever you can convince that employer that you're worth, make it. Get as much as you can. Okay? And I'll kind of end it on this. Now, the connections to socialism is pretty easy. Okay? The ideas behind the union is very easy. Why socialism? Why that was how unions really got going. It was the going against the man, going against the bourgeoisie. I'm not going to say that right, so I'm not going to try anymore. What they considered back in the day to be the wealthy, the factory workers and all them. And yeah, sure, factory workers back then were probably jerks to people. Mainly because they didn't know yet. They were still trying to get this whole idea of how to run a factory, how to keep it going, and how to keep happy employees. Yeah, sure, it was bad back then. It's called progress. Thanks to Henry Ford, it really became fast after he came on board because he started paying wages based on that. He started paying higher wages because he understood better employees. But he also understood the best way to get a car to the masses. Well, you can't pay your employees that much, or else the cars are too much for everybody else. The only people who can afford it are barely the workers, and then the rich. Anyways, I went off topic there a little bit. So the connection to socialism is pretty obvious. Okay, it's go against the man, those evil rich people. We gotta hate the rich people. We gotta hate the factory owners. We gotta hate the business owners. So let's, as a group underneath, let's rise up and that would be the Bolsheviks, communism, socialism. Let's rise up and defeat them, take them down a notch, and that's what unions are all about. Okay, taking down the notch, keep taking them down a notch, the businessmen and all that, but keeping their power. Because I guarantee you that those union people, those bosses, the ones making a lot of money, the bosses, the ones that don't even ever work in the factory anymore at all, the ones that are golfing every day with the congressmen and the business owners, those ones, they don't care about you. Sorry. I think that's good. What I want to make sure, again, I'm not against the workers. What I'm for is freedom. Always. Any discussion I have, the first thing I'm going to think about is freedom. Freedom for everybody. That's freedom for a person who starts a business, as well as the employees that work for them. Okay? And the freedom is they both come together and decide how much the business owner is going to pay the worker, and if the worker's willing to do what he wants him to do for that wage. It's pretty simple. How wages go up, that's natural. Free market as well. As businesses get more work, they need more employees. As they can make more money, they can pay more in wages. As employees get upset about the wages, they will go to companies who pay more wages. Other companies come in and say, I can pay the wages a little more, and they go to there. And then the other companies have to pay the wages more. That's how it works. The idea that there isn't a bottom wage is, how do I say this? It hurts the people who don't really go out and get a good, decent work habit. The ones who don't go out and learn how to work on cars, learn how to work on HVAC. They don't go out there and learn, or they don't, or they can't. They don't go out there and learn how to work on trucks or drive a truck or get into management or go to college. Those workers get priced out of the market because all the good workers that have all this knowledge, the wages go up. Well, if a worker doesn't have that, they can't. They can't get into the workforce because companies aren't going to pay people who just can't work and do the job properly. They just won't. Okay? Little lesson on capitalism, free market capitalism. All right, again, so unions, bad. The idea of workers going out and getting as much as they can, good. Just seeing if there's anybody that happens to be on Facebook that might disagree with me on that. Let's see. All right, looks like everything's still going strong. Now, let me backtrack here and get off topic again and talk about the podcast itself. I understand it's going to almost having to start back over again because of the inconsistency of getting on here. If you happen to listen to this after the live is done on YouTube or on Facebook, if you happen to listen to it, make comments, please. And I will respond to those comments next podcast. Hopefully now that my schedule should be back to normal every single Wednesday where people know, yep, oh, I think he's on. What is he talking about today? Or maybe people start realizing, hey, I wouldn't mind getting stuff off my chest. I know it's a little uncomfortable to call in. I understand that. It's a little overwhelming a little bit. You kind of wonder. But guess what? I don't have a million people out there listening. So if you want to get your political, social, religious, even personal, doesn't matter. Okay, I will beat up anybody on that topic. Doesn't matter what topic it is. I'll yell at you and push you around. And no, I'm kidding. But anyways, all right. What's next? Socialism. Oh, a fun topic. Socialism. I think it's been 4 weeks since I was supposed to talk about socialism, and Remember how I get my information is I watch tons and hours and hours and hours of political debates on whatever topic it is, whether it be socialism versus capitalism, whether it be global warming or gun control, whatever the topic is. Usually that's how I come up with my topics. I leave here, start work again Thursday morning, start driving, start listening to different podcasts, start listening to the news. A topic will come up, boom, I go out and I start listening to more information. I generally have my ideas on most topics over the last 25 years of doing this, but ever since finding podcasts a year and a half ago or so, it's... All right, I'm going to go off topic again on a little bit of a conversation here. I have learned more from listening to podcasts. And I got in a little bit of debate with a relative of mine when we were on Facebook talking about global warming, man-made global warming, all that good stuff. And he's going to school now. He already has a degree. He's very big into the peer-reviewed and he has a very high thoughts about that's the way you learn. That's everything. That's how. And I would tell him, well, I got my information from this YouTube video, this video, listening to this debate on this topic, and that's all he did was put that down. He couldn't get it into his head that the same people writing those peer-reviewed papers are the ones I'm listening to on YouTube videos. He kept saying, stop going to YouTube for information. I'm like, YouTube is not the information. YouTube is just a source. I'm listening to the same people that you're talking about writing these peer-reviewed. Okay. But I'm listening to not them just writing something on paper. I'm not into them having each other scratch each other's back in this absurd peer review idea. That's all they do. It's just one scientist writing a paper and then all his buddies going on there and putting their names on it, or going on there and say, yeah, sure, I reviewed it, when all they did was read the abstract. The peer review process is nothing. I'm not going to say what I did on Facebook, although it was fitting. I learned more from listening to people on YouTube videos than I ever have in college. And I've got a lot of college experience. Sadly to say, I've got a lot of college experience. I think I'm up to about 165, 170 credit hours, so we won't get into that. But I've got a lot of classes under my belt, under all topics. And I've never learned, even in biology, which I actually thoroughly enjoyed college biology, I didn't get anything out of that compared to listening to people on a YouTube video either debating one thing or another. Even as much as the world, the astrophysicists on a Joe Rogan podcast talking about his book and getting into deep topic issues. I learned more from that than I ever have from college or even reading a book. Now, that's me personally. I get more from the audio and the video part of it, whatever that means as far as my education ability, than I do reading. And, of course, reading the books. I don't read the books. I listen to them while I'm driving. But I still get more from the podcasts. And that's just something for people out there who are wanting to learn something. I mean, YouTube, okay, fine. I can't stand them because of they're part of this, and I'll get into it with the socialism. They're part of this whole degrading of our society. YouTube is. Because they're basically a bunch of leftist socialists They're fascists in the way that they're attached to the government, and they're trying to take over all that. They're saying, no, you can't say this, you can't say this on YouTube, and Facebook is even worse. Just simple words, just any kind. When you that Greta, whatever her name was, you mentioned her on Facebook or YouTube, and you got stopped instantly. It got canceled. Some of them got completely canceled, not just that video or post. Boy, did I ever go into another rant. But anyways, my point is YouTube, as bad as they are that way, if you want to learn something, type it into YouTube. Type into a debate in YouTube. I've listened to so many debates on socialism versus capitalism. So many debates on the positives of socialism as well as the negative of socialism. The connection between socialism and fascism and communism, which they're pretty much all there. Many podcasts and videos. And that's how I get my information. That's how I hone my information. That's how I make sure that I'm still got that objective truth that I'm searching for. And the socialism, no different. And so that's what I did. Went out. Now, fine. I'm going to start off with some of the more dry stuff, which is numbers, the meanings of them, how they're interconnected with communism and fascism, some of the leaders, what has happened. But once I get past all that, then it's going to be more into the meat and potatoes of socialism and why I think socialism is destructive and how I connect. And this is what I really hopefully I can control myself until I get to that point. But towards the end, it's going to be that connection. I'm going to point out to you how after World War II, Soviet Union took over a lot of those Eastern European countries and turned them communism. How they did it. Each nation was kind of different, how they had to do it. But they had a format. And if you read up on Lenin especially, if you read up on him, that's one thing you're going to find out, is they had a plan. This is how we're going to take over the world, basically. And if it wasn't for, guess who? Not me, but the United States, it would have happened. Because what they were doing worked very well. That's why it spread so rapidly until the results happened, which I'll point out. So, socialism, second topic of the day. Before I get into that, again, take a drink. Also, make sure everything's working all right. Remember, if you happen to come in here, there we go. Okay. All I hear is how much money GM makes and how much the CEO makes. I really don't think that's any of the workers' business, but that's what the union brings up. Didn't the FBI raid the union boss house and arrest him for embezzlement? Yes and yes. Actually, I think I heard something about that FBI guy got raided. Now, of course, they're just going to say that's anecdotal. One bad person. Whatever. But yeah, on Facebook, I got that argument probably more than anything. Is these evil corporations that apparently they're in that time when they didn't do very good, right? They were having problems. They were going possibly bankruptcy. Jeez, it's hard not to laugh. They would come on there and point out, look how great we were as workers. GM was going through this struggle. And we as workers, we took less. We took less in our... first of all, I don't know if they did because it's contract, right? And they stick to their contracts, right? So if something was going on, maybe there was a contract back then. Maybe they were just going through a contract. And so during that contract, they took a little less. Okay, maybe. I don't know. Possibly. It's hard to believe. But okay, that's fine. But now GM is doing so great and so wonderful. The big three are doing so great and they're making so much money, these billions. They need to give back. And of course, the CEOs. Now, every time I got that, Ralph, every time I said that they came on there and they would talk about that, I would say, first of all, it's a company. If a company wants to pay the CEO $1 billion and they want to pay their burger flipper, I use that as a I actually use the term burger flipper for a lot as an idea of a position, not necessarily the burger flipper, but I think working on a factory line is the same as being a burger flipper. Yeah, I know. I got a lot of yelling at that. That didn't go well at all on Facebook. But anyways, yeah. They would actually, I would point out that first of all, it's got nothing to do. You have no say in it. What a business wants to pay their CEO. And guess what, man? You work on a line flipping burgers or putting metal A in slot metal B. Well, the billionaire CEO brings in 10 billion. See, that's a contract. You're big into contract, union workers. Well, their contract states you come in, you raise our income, you bring in new business, you cut the fat, whatever you do to make us more profitable, and we're going to give you XYZ. This much in money, this much in stock options, this much in a new Lamborghini. I don't care. And they would fall apart at that point. They obviously don't have an answer for that, Ralph. They don't. Because what are they going to say? Nuh-uh. Okay, they don't say anything. They don't argue that. All they will do is say, yeah, well, he doesn't need to make $1 billion. Okay, well, apparently he does, and he can, and he obviously brought in enough to do that. Now, does every CEO make their worth? No. Nope, and that's up to the company. That's still up to the company. They bring in a CEO hoping they will make an extra X amount of billions of dollars, and so they're going to pay them this much no matter what, and then if they do reach these goals, they're going to make even more. And if that company ends up losing money during that person's time as CEO, well, so too bad. They tried. They're out of that money. But so what? Again, that's up to the company. That's what the union workers don't seem to want to understand because the union brainwashes them. And a lot of these union workers, I noticed on Facebook, agreed with me on just about every other topic. But then all of a sudden you start talking to them about union, and oh my God, it's like I'm the devil. It's like, who are you? It's like they don't even know me anymore because all of a sudden I'm bringing up the same ideals on whether it be abortion or taxes or gun rights or anything. It's the same general purpose. It's freedom. It's your freedom and their freedom. Your freedom stops where theirs begins. As a business owner, they have the right to do what they want. Okay? Now, I'm not going to get into it. I was going to talk about how that's how Goldwater lost the minority vote, is that idea. But anyways, the businesses have the right to do that. They have a right to pay what they want, whether it's a CEO or you. So yes, Ralph, I agree. And I think I did read something about that FBI raid. I think you're right. I did. Before I get into socialism, I almost forgot. Let me get out of the way. This actually is part of socialism. This right here, up, well, not on the wall, but I'm going to keep that up. This is what's been going on since before Trump took office. And this actually feeds into my socialism, because one of the ways that the communists and the dictatorships, which is socialism, one of the ways that they take power is by doing stuff like this. This is Spygate. This is the corruptness between the Obama administration, the Clinton crime group, all of the CIA and FBI and DOJ. That's what this is. And if no one's ever heard of the Epic Times, and I hope this isn't going to be, what do you call that strike? I got a strike from Facebook and YouTube because I was playing music. Well, I'm hoping this isn't the same situation. I really don't know the rules on that, but I'm just wanting to point out that this is the Epic Times. They're basically an online newspaper, and they cover every topic, But of course, once the whole Spygate came on, they made this. And this is all the connections. And it points out person by person. Because one thing you'll find out if you ever actually look into what's happening with the Trump and the Russian hoax is the names. And it's amazing how they all knew each other before and how they all came from the different agencies. And I don't know. I found it incredible. Okay. But anyways, get back in the picture here. So that's what's behind me. I don't know if anybody noticed that it's not the books and all that anymore, but and I'm going to keep that up there. I don't know. Maybe I might be one of the podcasts. I might actually go through it. I don't know. It might be too dry for people. Anyways, now back to socialism. Again, if you happen to get on this, please share it, like it, share it, do it. No one ever gets on YouTube. That's why I don't know. I might be getting off YouTube here soon, but they keep my videos so I'm going to get on Twitch. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get a website, get it started so that I can restream to 3 or 4 different sites, and Twitch will be the next one. I think Twitch, my nephew, Alex, is really pushing Twitch. He really likes it and thinks it's a great idea. And based on what he says, and a couple times I've been on there, I agree with him. Now it's just a matter of me finding that website that I can do it and start on Twitch again. Start on Twitch. All right, socialism. First, like I said, some definitions, some point. This is going to be a long podcast. If you enjoy it, please, of course, keep listening. Put your 2 cents in on comments. But this is what we've been trying to stop since Marx wrote his paper. Since Engels and him did the Communist Manifesto in 1945 or 1848. So once America came, we found what we were going to be as a country, the freedom. We pulled away from the monarchy, and once kind of a globalization. I know globalization is actually kind of a bad thing, but once free markets really took hold prior to Marx, and everything was kind of moving towards that way, we've been fighting this fight since that beginning. Okay. First of all, exactly what is socialism? And if any, and I know I sound weird that even this might be happening, but it does. I actually do have some kids out there, some younger people that actually watch this occasionally. You really need to understand, because you're the ones that they're saying that socialism is grabbing a hold of, and you're thinking it's great. And the professors out there, they're the ones that socialism fits them, because socialism is nothing more than a preset laws and preset economic structure, and it's scientific is what they try to say it is. But it doesn't work. But they think they're smart enough. But we can do it. But we can do it. And time after time after time, it doesn't work. Socialism is it's an economic theory. It advocates the means of production, distribution, and an exchange. In their view, it should be regulated by the worker or a community of workers, that it shouldn't be an ownership. Someone shouldn't own it, and then workers have to work for them. So that's socialism in a nutshell, and it sure sounds great. Now, the thing about a lot of people, you'll hear them say, well, socialism isn't communism. Communism isn't socialism. As a matter of fact, what is it? Stalin and Hitler, boy, they didn't like each other. They kind of fought against each other, and they were going, no, don't let them rewrite history, okay? The fact is even Marx, basically what they would say is the father of communism, but he's actually the father of socialism. He even felt that socialism is the natural end to capitalism, because boy, capitalism just isn't going to work, and the the worker will always fight the bourgeois, the elite. They'll always fight them, and when that happens, the natural end of capitalism is socialism, and then the precursor to communism is socialism. So it's capitalism, and then socialism will take over because the people will just can't take it no more. And then, of course, communism will take over. Basically, the easiest way to understand it is communism is the force for socialism. Socialism is going, and then in order to force people to stay in the socialism, to stay under the thumb of the leaders, you got to have a dictatorship or communism. And that's when the government actually steps in and said, okay, yeah, we are part of you as a group. We are part of the collective. We just need someone to run that collective. Communism. Socialism is the philosophical idea because it came from Marx, a philosopher. Communism, it's more of an economic and political, which requires that the government be the central owner and the decision maker in all matters. That's communism. Now, fascism, and again, you young people or you Democrat voters out there who refuse to actually look into stuff, stop with this crap that fascism and the right wing or conservatism, they're the same thing. That somehow Hitler was a right winger. Fascism, all fascism is, the main difference to fascism is that business and government work together. And not in a good way. It's called corporatism. Same thing. There are different aspects of fascism. Fascism just has a lot of the same things communism had, like shutting people's voice down. That's fascism. So corporatism, it's a lot like fascism, where the business owners and the government, the big government, the dictator type government people, whether it be a Congress or a prime minister or a president, doesn't matter. They get together and say, we will let you be the only business in town as long as you follow our rules. And if you follow our rules as a business, all the other businesses will just go away and then it'll just be you. And the business owner is like, oh, that's great. It'll be all me. And then, of course, he gets shot because then the dictators then say, well, why do we need you? But anyways, that is socialism. That is communism. That is fascism. They're all the same. They're intertwined. You have people like Bernie. Do good in hospital, Bernie. I hope you get better. People like Bernie who say, oh, well, we don't want that socialism. Back in the day, they were like Venezuela when their base dictator came up and took over everything and made socialism the way to go. They were like, we want that socialism. Well, then, of course, everyone started dying in Venezuela, and that didn't work, just like back in the 40s and 50s. It didn't work in the 60s. Now Bernie's like, well, we don't want that socialism. We want the socialism from the Nordic countries. That's the socialism we want. Please go back and listen to what he says, because that's exactly the way it happened every time. It's like, well, we don't want that socialism. We're smarter. We're a smart, strong country. That's what they say. We're a good, strong country. We can do socialism right. Well, hey, Bernie, how did we get to be a strong country? How did we get to be the strongest, safest, freest country ever on the face of this planet? It wasn't because we might be able to do socialism better. It was because capitalism, free market, fit freedom. And that's us. And guess what? We're not a free market capitalist system. We tried. At some points we were, back when they did the laissez-faire, back when government actually started staying out of our business. Did great. Since Wilson and FDR and all them and the Democrat Party, moving towards socialism, bit by bit, bringing in that socialism. That's what's going on. We fought it back in Wilson and FDR and them guys when it really came on strong. You heard of a guy named McCarthy? McCarthyism is a bad name. McCarthy stopped this stuff. Okay? He may have went a little overboard because he went after all the people that were connected to people that were bad, and that's not a good thing, and I agree. But thank God for McCarthy. Because McCarthyism really got the juices of American citizens going again. It got the American citizen back up on their feet, off their fat rear ends, because we're a fatter country. Why? Because we can eat as much as we want, and that's a good thing. It got them off their fat butts and started fighting back again, instead of just lazily allowing things to happen behind their backs because they're living a good life. They're getting jobs, they're going to school, they're making money, they're having families, everything's great. Guess what? Someone's home. You might hear some background noise. We'll keep going. So, it got stopped back then. Well, guess what, people? It's every bit as strong today as it was then. And we need someone in Congress to be that McCarthy. Okay? We need someone in Congress to stand up to the Bernie Sanderses and the AOCs and that group of 4 women that are just hideous people. They're trying to be the next Wilson and FDR and bring socialism back. They're trying again, and that's what this whole podcast started from, is because we need everybody out there getting off their fat rear ends and stop standing by because we got life is so good. Life is great. The poor in our country have a pretty good life compared to the rest of the world. And that's why we're getting soft again. And that's why the millennials came out. Okay? The millennials are where they are because the parents above them, they started getting a little soft. Now the millennials are soft. And we got to fight. It's time to fight. Okay? You got to start talking and being strong and fighting against this stuff, you younger people. Boy, I went on a rant. Okay, anyways. So, that's socialism. That's communism in a nutshell. Now I'm going to give you some of the leaders of the communist, the beginning and a little bit now. But let me go over the leaders. Let me make sure everything's still going here. I'm still showing that I'm live. I hope audio and video is still going strong. You ever notice how, if you've been watching my podcast, that I sure do rant a lot about how great this country is? Well, we need more of that. So I'm going to keep doing it. All right. And I just wish that Democrats were strong enough in their beliefs to actually call and try to defend their points. I'm really hoping maybe sometime before the next election that'll happen. I'm going to keep trying. All right. So we have Karl Marx and Engels. Karl Marx wrote his paperwork basically yelling and screaming about this capitalist type system, the rich and all the poor, and fighting back between the two. And so he basically was the founding philosopher of what is today socialism and communism. Engels was another guy about that same time. They got together and they wrote the Communist Manifesto together back in 1848. So it was a while ago. Boy, I hope I have those dates right. I think I do. So now, one of the first leaders that really took this Communist Manifesto as bit by bit the proletariat, as they called them, I didn't write down the term. I'm going to forget that term. Starts with the B. Not going to have it, am I? Anyways. So Lenin was the first one that really decided that as a country, once he took over and they won the revolution, he was going to institute this idea of socialism and communism. Then Stalin took after him and took it to the next level. During that time is when Hitler was. So Stalin was 1917 to 1924. Lenin. Stalin came in at 20 to 53. Hitler was 1933 to 1945. So you see how Hitler and Stalin were right there. Of course, you had Mao, 49 to 76, and then Mussolini was right in there in the 1920s with Stalin and Hitler. Mussolini was a Hitler wannabe, basically, but without the. I don't think he was as much of. I guess we'll call it racism. A lot bigger than just racism, but basically, they all wanted. Most of them wanted, even Stalin, of course Hitler, and they wanted that their own blood. It was more their own countrymen than just racism for another race or religion or anything like that. Those were the main leaders during the time of socialism and communism coming into power. Lenin and then Stalin. Hitler, when you look back on Hitler, and I'm gonna separate him out, because Hitler was, because I'm going to get into the deaths. Okay, this is the whole part. This is the whole reason I bring up the leaders. There was about 100 million deaths during this time. And those deaths came from, from mass killings, crimes against civilians by the government, executions, the destruction of population groups through man-made hunger because of the different ideas that socialism pushes, is the egalitarian. And of course, during the forced deportations, imprisonments, and of course, forced labor. Because when you're socialism and communism, they own you. You work for them. If they need something done, you're going to do it till you die. Simple as that. So during that time period, from Lenin 1917 right up through Mao, over 100 million died because of socialism and communism. That really can't be argued. Okay? Your socialists will argue that no, it was because they were bad men, that they took socialism and made a bad thing of it, or communism made a bad thing of it. That's your Bernies. But what they miss is socialism turns to communism, dictatorship. It just is what it is, okay? Because you have to. The only way that you can, and this is what you need to remember as far as socialism and communism, the only way you can force people to work, because if you own all the workers and you need so much food to survive, you have to be able to force those workers to work and eat as little as possible, because it all has to go and shared to the people who don't farm, the people in the factories that are making furniture and making everything else that don't make food. You have to make enough for them too. So everybody gets a very little bit of food so that everybody can survive. They hoard it. Well, people aren't going to like that. People are going to be like, hey, I'm making up all this food. I want to at least be able to eat enough. The only way you can do that is by gun. The only way you can do that is by forcing them by gun. Where if you don't work, we're going to shoot you in the head. That's communism. That's why it always leads to communism. That's why it always leads to a form of dictatorship. Because you're not going to get people to work like that. Especially if they know every day they get what they get, whether they work or not. Because it's socialism. Everybody gets it. Of course, that one saying I can never remember, to each what they can do. I'm not even going to try. I should have found it. That's a good statement. But so that's socialism. That's why you had 100 million deaths. Because people either starved, because that was Mao. I think Mao was 30 million of it. He was 30 million because of the great, they called it the Great Leap Forward, which was a whole idea of planting and people working in the farms, and he really concentrated on that. And I believe about 30 million died, give or take, all right? where the other ones combined were anywhere from 50 to 80, 50 to 70 or whatever. But during that time, 1917 to 1976, about 100 million. That's socialism. It's from the Lenins. Lenin was due to starvation a lot, as well as the murder and the putting people in prison because they stood up to his rule. About 5 million. Stalin was about 7 million. Hitler was 11 million. And I ranted, so I got to go back to Hitler. I tried to find the German life during Hitler, his reign, his rule as a national socialism. Okay, that's what the Nazis stand for, National Socialism. To really know how well things were going, because it was pretty much war. A lot of his rule was basically getting rid of a lot of people. Well, naturally, if you get rid of a lot of people, your economy will probably get better. And that's what he was doing. His whole rule was he didn't just kill Jews. He killed invalids. He killed Romanians. He killed a lot of people that weren't of the Jewish persuasion. So I couldn't really, I'm trying to be honest here and say that it's socialism. The way socialism works is why these 100 million people died, where half of it was because of the actual socialism part, the food, the fact that you can't get a working economy through socialism, where the other half, or maybe less than half, were actually from the outcome of socialism, which is communism, which is murdering people who don't agree with you. Okay? Now, in socialism and communism, you have to kill those people. You have to. If they disagree with you, you have to kill them. Because if they get out and start podcasts, for instance, or they get out there as a newspaper article, or they can actually get to the masses an idea that conflicts with yours, then you're going to have an uprising, and they're not going to be out there making the machinery or the corn, and your whole thing is going to fall. So a lot of people died, probably half of them, because of the fact that they had to kill the people who oppose them. Now, believe it or not, I'm going to connect how they became strong through communism with the Democrat Party now. And you will see the distinction. You will see their core, the value, what they believe in as far as how to take power. I'm not saying that the Democrat Party will be going out and killing everybody, unless you're Hillary Clinton, maybe. But I'm not saying that they're going to be like the Stalins and the Hitlers and the Maos and the Mussolinis and the Lenins, where they're actually going out there and killing their opposition. But this here behind me is pretty much just as good, right? Not as good, but in America, there's things that stop them from killing us because we have guns. And so they don't want that uprising. So they're going to do it a different way. What they do is they do stuff like this. And I'll get into that. Remember, and one more thing before I get into that connection, because this is the last part of it, where I show you how basically Russia, okay, after World War II, I'm going to show you how they came into power. And you will see the connection between how they came into power and how the Democrat Party is getting into power, the things that they've done since Wilson, at least, up until today. Now that they're back in power, the leftists, the hardcore socialists. See, the Democrats, like a Kennedy, I don't think he was a socialist. I think he was actually an American-loving, freedom-loving Democrat. You don't have those Democrats, at least in power anymore. They might be in the lower seats and all that, just your everyday Democrat politician. But they're not the ones in power now. And that's what this is all about. All right, one more break before I get into the last part of it. see if there's any comments or anything out there. G, nothing in YouTube. All right. That's weird how I have two things. I don't know why I have two things on there for Facebook. Anyways. All right. I'll go ahead and finish it up. How socialist communists took after World War II. How did they take part? All right. First thing. After World War II, and I believe it was Stalin. I know it sounds silly, but for some reason I always get their names confused. Stalin and Lenin. I don't know. I apologize. It is what it is. Anyways, remember, I remember why I liked something, how I didn't like it, and better than I do the names and dates, but luckily I went and wrote that down. So, how they took back over, because remember, at first Russia and Germany were on the same side, and they were starting to take over. Okay, Russia agreed that we'll just take over these couple, and then you can have the rest down here, and that's how it started. Eventually, Hitler, and I believe if Hitler wouldn't have done this, Europe would be all German and Russian. Okay, but anyways, Hitler then, of course, turned on Russia. Well, when Hitler turned on Russia, Russia was like, hey, you guys over there, we'll help you stop them if you help us. He was militarily, tried to go in and get them during the coldest weather. But anyways, it's a whole other story. So, because we all understand history, Russia then come over. All right. So now, this would be the time when they split Germany, right? They split Germany all up into like 4 quadrants or something like that. And they got their piece. Well, sorry. It was tailor-made for Russia, well, Soviet Union, to start the idea and to become the Soviet Union, because they had their military kind of all over the East, especially once Hitler was done. They really moved that huge military force of theirs into all the different areas that they wanted, which was really Germany, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Romania, the Eastern European countries that they didn't take them over yet as far as during the wartime. And these countries were all kind of weak because they were involved in the war with Germany. They had been taken over by Germany. And so what they did was they figured out, just like how they took over their own country, this is what they did. These are the few things. And there's a book out there called Iron Curtain. And it's called The Crushing of Eastern Europe, 44 to 56. Anne Applebaum. Great book. It really does get into these details of how they took over all these different nations. And I'll go down on the list. What they did was they started they gutting of local institutions through murder, terror campaigns, the tactical maneuvering inside the government, such as having free elections when they first got there. They're okay with that. This is long term. This is what socialists do. They're long term thinkers. And it's that tactical maneuvering that really helped push it over the edge. The other stuff just made everyone else afraid to stop the tactical maneuvering. So what they would first do is infiltrate the government with they would put their leaders in these elections, and then they individual areas in the elections, they're communists, and they would go in and rig the elections. Just small ones to get in there, to get their people in there. They're going to rig those elections. Once they get in there, those people are going to start kind of talking the talk. They're going to talk about how great and wonderful everything is. How what through communism and socialism. Well, they started socialism. Through that, how great it can be. How we can let's not let these evil capitalists back in here. So they infiltrated the government that was there. They used fear to those that opposed them. Okay, how did they do that? Well, I mean, they got a lot of the stuff through the brown shirts and the Gestapo through Germany. They definitely had the Gestapo and all that in Germany. But those type of things, which is basically a cop force, a police force that would go around and really start terrorizing the communities. Anybody who spoke up against communists. And one of the first thing they would do is they would get into these groups. Well, back then they were just like social groups, whatever they were, soccer clubs or something like that. Well, today it's no different than like back in the 60s, maybe the 60s. I don't know exactly when they started infiltrating our social groups, the Democrats. That's what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare. I'm going to side by side. I should have stated this. I'm sorry. I'm going to explain how they did it, and then I'm going to compare that to what we have going now. So, for instance, the brown shirts and the Gestapo and all that. Right now, we have what's going on with against Trump, right? You've got your CIA, and a lot of CIA and FBI agents come from the Harvards and the Yales, and they're nothing but a bunch of socialists there, right? Hard leftist liberals, the professors, and that's what they teach their kids. So the kids come out of there with that mentality that you're the smart ones, you're the next rulers of this country because you're the smart ones and you know what's best. They're the ones that are in the CIA, FBI, the DOJ, and all those. All of the secret governments, the secret police. I'm not saying they're all bad. I've always been a defender of the FBI and CIA and all that. We need those sort of things to keep our country strong from other countries. The problem is you get people like the ones that are in there, and I always forget the names of those. And the heads of the security, the FBI's and the CIA's, the Muellers, and the guy who took after him, McCarthy or something like that, and the Strokes and the Lisa Pages, which are the lower down FBI people, and you get those people in there, and they have that belief of they're strong enough that they can do this, and they do things like what they did to Trump. Let me get back where I was. That is the same as back then with the brown shirts and the Gestapo, the secret police. Right now we have Antifa going out there. And you have people saying, well, no, they're not part of the Democrat Party. Well, yeah, they are. A lot of the Democrat Party leaders actually are supporting Antifa. And they're the ones stopping the government from declaring them terrorist groups, okay? They are the same as what you would call as the brown shirts, okay? They promote fear in the public to stand up against this idea of socialism and communism. That's what they do. If you're out there at some of these different rallies for the more pro-American rallies, they come out there and they try to make you feel bad. They try to scare you. They anybody who goes around there, they try to scare you into doing that. That's what it is. That's the same thing. Same tactics as the brown shirts did with Hitler. Anybody who spoke up against them, they beat them up. The Gestapo during the East Germany. Anyone that spoke up to them or had meetings or tried to get in touch with someone else, they stopped them. They put fear in people to speak out. They become the speech police. That sound familiar right now? You know, where you can't say certain things. You can't talk about certain topics without someone shutting you down. Pretty similar, isn't it? Of course, the rigged elections. We know that the Democrat Party is the party of rigged elections. We know that. Okay, they've been the party of rigged elections since Reconstruction, since they put an end to Reconstruction, through the KKK, which was another part of the Democrat Party, such as Antifa, just like the brown shirts were for the Germans, right? That's socialism. That's communism. You find a group of people that go out there and put fear in people, and that's how Reconstruction ended. They put fear in people going out and voting for the Republicans, for the black people that were in party, that they were actually in Congress back then. They put fear in the normal Republican. It wasn't just KKK wasn't just going out there and going after black people. They were going after white Republicans that were voting. That's what they did. Same thing. Rigged elections. We know the Democrat Party, that's what they're all about. We constantly find that dead people are voting. We're constantly finding that illegals are voting. We're constantly finding pollsters that are hiding stuff, and the election's rigged that way. And I think you're going to see that in 2020, because if they can't stop Trump any other way, especially in the states like Michigan and Ohio and Florida, Pennsylvania, they're going to be in Wisconsin. There's going to be so much rigging going on there, people. It's going to be so bad. And I don't know if Trump has the power, because there's a lot of politicians that don't want him there because he's trying to stop the status quo. They're going to do the same thing that the communists did back from the 40s on. That was one of the biggest things they did. Yep, free elections. See, we're for free elections. But then they're going to, every chance they get, they're going to rig just where they need to rig it so that they bit by bit get more power every time the elections happen, to the point where it's no longer free elections. Then socialism. And now everybody's afraid because they don't know what's going on. The economy is tanking. Guess what? The government's going to step in and help you. That's how socialism takes over a democracy. It's real simple. And you can connect it with what's going on right now. Real simple. All these protests that are going on right now, they're fake, people. They're not groundswell from your normal average person going out there with these protesting. It's the Antifa people out there causing all this problems. They're trying to make you Democrat voters think that things are just so bad. Oh my God, we got to vote for bigger government to help save us. That's how they do it. The first thing they do, and this was in that book, and when I read, well, I'm going to say read it, but when I read it, one of the first things they did, and this makes sense, and this goes right down the Democrat Party line, they took control of the communication industry. Now back then, obviously, radio, I guess, but they took it over, so it was very easy. They put people in charge of the stations, and everything that went through the airwaves was pro-communism, was anti-capitalism. Well, they've been doing that since the beginning of TV. They saw the power of it, and they've been doing it. That's why your ABC, NBC, CBS, back in the day before cable, all of them, it was just 100% that moved towards getting the Democrat power. They would demean and call names of and call them, tell them that they're racists and they're misogynists, and they control that media. Well, now it's no different, because now not only do you have the news organizations that's been there, as well as NPR, everyone knows that's Democrat radio, but big tech. That's the final nail in the coffin if we allow it to happen. Big tech is doing what? They're censoring every chance they get, as much as they possibly can, without going over that line to where the government's going to step in and say, no, you're too much power. You're stopping free speech too much. But that's what big tech is doing, and we all know that. It's obvious. They've taken control of what can be said. That's straight out of Stalin and Hitler and Mao and Lenin and Mussolini. That's straight from their playground, or their playbook. There's a book called it's Rules for Radicals from Saul Alinsky. That's the Democrat Party playbook. The first thing they have to do is they have to demonize. Now, the first thing to demonize the other side is they have to make people afraid of them. They have to make people scared of them, that they're going to somehow do something bad to them. And they have to make them out to be bad people. Well, how do you make someone out to be a bad person when all they're trying to do is give you more freedom? Okay, they can't come right out and say, we want to take over every aspect of your life, so vote against the people who want to give you freedom. So what they do is they take control of the words. It's no different than Nazis burning books. Okay? No different than that. Except for they're burning words. Every word that you can't say now is another nail in that coffin of freedom. And they empower themselves so that way every time a person gets strong, every time they get to that level of where they have a lot of people listening to them, every little word they use, they try to demonize that word. Whatever it is. It's real simple to do. Back when Obama was president, I remember arguing with my uncle. And I called Obama a communist. Based on his views. Socialist, communist, probably not more socialist, whatever. I think I called him a socialist. He actually came back. This was back when he supported Obama. He actually came back and said that's the new N-word. What? He fell for it. He fell for that new argument because the people in power and the media that were backing Obama made the word socialist, because that's what he was. And everyone knows that if most of America, us American-loving, freedom-loving people, the 80% out here that still are, we're not going to allow socialism. We really won't, okay? Once you know what it is, taking away your freedoms, we're going to fight against it. We're going to actually stand up, get off our butts, and start talking and stop this, just like they did with Wilson and FDR in that era. And so they made the word socialism all of a sudden mean racist. It's the N-word. And they're on the news. I remember it distinctly. Right after he said that to me, I'm like, what are you talking about? Socialist, that's the way he thinks, and I'm against that. Now you're calling me a racist because socialism is the new N-word. Total made no sense. But it didn't matter. That's what they did. That's what they do. It's no different than burning books. It's no different back in the day when they stopped people from saying things. How is it any different? It isn't. And that's how they demean the opposition. They make every word that person says to be evil. Whatever word it is. And of course, back then it was just socialism. They made it because it was gaining too much ground. So now they've made people afraid to call Obama a socialist. They made it people afraid to criticize him at all. Because any criticism of him, that's because you're a racist. That's how stupid it is. But these people who vote for Democrats, they just blindly, don't be me. Whatever you say, you wouldn't lie to me. You're on my side because, you're for the working man. There's a connection. All right, that's what they do. They infiltrated our social groups, the NAACP, NOW, AARP, LGTB. Am I saying that right? I don't know. All of those groups now are our social groups. Back then, it was like the soccer groups and all that. Back when Russia was taking over, they would go to these countries and they would take over their social groups. Well, our social groups basically are the same as the NAACP, which started out as a good thing. It started out as actually a lot of Republicans ran the NAACP. They actually started out because we were trying to help that situation, well, what happens is the socialist, the people of the socialist background, the communists, just like they infiltrated the soccer groups back in the day, in the late 40s, they got into these groups. And they started running these groups. Now the NAACP could care less about minorities. All they care about is pushing socialism. Okay? That's why they didn't back Condoleezza Rice. Okay? That's why they don't go back anyone like that. A minority character that is of a conservative views, they don't back them. Well, why wouldn't they? If that's what they were for. Still for black people. They don't. They're not. They're not for minorities. They are a socialist group. That's it. Now organization. They aren't for the advancement of women. That's the dumbest thing. If they were, why didn't they support Palin? She was actually the closest woman to actually get into the presidency, or well, in that case, the vice presidency. They should have been on her the whole time. They should have been, this is great. This is our chance for women to be a vice president. The next step is president. They didn't, did they? Not at all. They demeaned her worse than any other group did. What does that tell you? Well, because the socialists took over their group. The socialists lead their group. AARP, for God's sakes. Same thing. They were taken over by the socialists. Lead that. So now everything you hear from them supports that side. You don't hear the other side. Okay? And of course the LGBT community, just like any other minority community out there, their leaders are socialists. The leaders of the groups. And they're the ones pushing these groups to cause problems. To just constantly hate and hate and hate. That's how you do it. That's the movement. It's not something that happens overnight. It happens over time. And the communists knew that. Now, it worked fast for them because they already had a lot of power. They already had the military there, so they could actually use that brute force, but not on all of them. Some of them, they had to go step by step by step and move up the ladder. And that's what we've been going through, especially since the 60s and the 70s. They really have been slowly, except for that hiccup with Reagan. And even in Reagan's case, there's a lot of programs that are in there that are of a socialist nature. Social Security, for God's sake, you don't get much more socialist than that. The healthcare, Obamacare, ACA, or whatever. That's as socialist as you can get. We are not a conservative. We are not a free market society. We are not a capitalist society yet. In any way, shape, or form. There's too much socialism in our government. There's too much already. And I think they feel that strength. The powers to be, they feel that we're right on that brink. We're just a little push. And I think Clinton getting elected would have been that final push. I really do. It really would have went more towards that socialist. And I'm telling you, once it gets to socialism, your grandkids are going to be living under a communist rule. And America will be no more. It'll just be another part of the world. European is already getting hardcore socialism as much as possible. Now, the only place that they point to, everywhere else we all know that socialism hasn't worked. It's killed over 100 million people since it really started taking hold. They used to go to Venezuela and Cuba, and they keep trying, but they all fail, and people are dying, and they're all trying to come here. So now they say the Nordic countries. And this will be my last point right here before I go back. I'm going to point out the Nordic countries and explain to you why it's a lie. Bernie is glad we don't have socialized medicine. He would have been put on a waiting list or been told sorry, too old for that. Actually, a Bernie... Oh, hello, Kevin. Sorry. I can't see all the comments real quick, and I get going, and I forget to look on there. How you doing, Kevin? You come on every once all the time. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, Ralph, Bernie... If Bernie was one of us, remember, the key thing to remember... Socialists socialism isn't for the socialist. Okay? The Bernies of the world, the people in the power, they still have good shit. Okay? They have the top of the line. That's why Congress didn't go into Obamacare. Congress didn't have Obamacare, did they? They still had their gold-plated health insurance. So, yeah, Bernie would have been just fine under socialized medicine because he would be at the top. But you're right. Your point is made. If he was one of us, he wouldn't have been all liking socialized medicine very much. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the leaders still get the top. I doubt if back then Stalin, the medicine was like the peasants. But anyways. All right, one more look. Still nothing on YouTube. Pretty sure it's working. Yep. All right. So yes, again, hello, Kevin. Thanks for jumping in here. And thank you for commenting, Ralph. I appreciate it. I really do. All right, let me wrap it up by explaining this myth of Nordic countries. Like I said, Bernie and them, they can't point to the Venezuela no more, or Cuba, or any place else because people are dying and starving, and Venezuela is just so bad right now. So now he points to the Nordic countries, the Swedens and the Denmarks and whatever. There's always been a strong socialist presence since World War II from that area, and they did. How do I say it? They did flirt with true socialism, and things went really, really bad for them. And so they basically became a capitalist society. Matter of fact, Sweden, Denmark, and all those places are more free economically than we are. Their tax system and everything is more free than us. Their capital gains tax is less than ours. They bring in more business, and the businesses have more freedoms and less regulations than we do. That's why their economy is doing so great. Where they differ is their social programs. They have what's called a value-added tax, a VAT. They keep trying that here, okay? And what that is on top of their normal, because I don't even think they have a progressive tax system, really. I think everybody, even the poor, they all pay taxes, which is what Bernie is actually, I think he kind of says the truth on that, is he points out, pretty much everyone. But I think they don't really have much of a progressive tax system. Everybody pays. They all pay. Now, the wealthy pay more of a percentage, but the poor still pay 10%, let's say, and then the middle class pays 18%, and then the very wealthy pays 30%, whatever. But everybody pays. Especially the VAT tax. The VAT tax, value-added tax. That is where they then get their money and they put into their social programs. And that really hurts the poor. VAT tax doesn't hurt the rich nearly as much, hardly at all. What that is, the value-added tax, is every single product has a tax put on it, a higher tax, an added tax. So everything you buy, everything. So you buy a car, you're going to pay whatever tax you normally would on sales tax for state, federal, whatever. But you're going to pay an additional 10% on that product. That's the VAT. And they do that for everything. And so the poor, obviously, has to pay an additional 10%. I'm using 10% as a random number. I don't know what it is. It could be less. It could be more. But it's extra on top of everything. Everybody pays it because every time you buy something, you have to pay it. And that goes towards the social programs. Social programs like healthcare that aren't that great. Their healthcare isn't better than ours as far as quality. They have the same problems that a Canada or Britain has with their healthcare. So if someone tries to tell you, yeah, see, socialism worked great. Look at that Nordic countries. No, let them know that they are more of a capitalist society than we are. They just raise their taxes unbelievably high to try to do their social programs, and they're struggling right now. They're struggling. They're struggling really bad. Even look at Germany with the I'm going to use the wrong term. No, I'm going to say autistic for some reason, but their measures where they had to cut back on all their free stuff to the elderly, all that free stuff they had, all the free healthcare and all that. A lot of those countries they're hurting right now because of how much everything costs. So, no, they're not socialist. There is not a single true socialist country that is thriving. Okay, that just it works really good, especially a communist country. Maybe China's economy seems to be doing pretty good, but they started moving towards even more of a capitalist type society. They're more of a fascist society, but they're starting to move more towards that capitalist, more towards the Nordic, because they realized how bad things were going, and all of a sudden their economy flew. Until Trump came and beat their... Now their economy kind of sucks. But sorry, I had to get that in. All right. I don't see any more comments. I think this would be a good place to go ahead and end it. I think I got everything in there for socialism and the unions. And remember, if you didn't listen to it live, please listen to it if you're listening to it. Share it, like it, tell your friends, especially if they're Democrats and like to debate points and want to, hey, good, perfect time to make a more conservative-minded person just look like a fool. Just call me and show me what's what. So, Facebook, like it and share it. YouTube, because I actually do get views on YouTube. Thanks, Jackie. Got on there and must have heard me yelling in here about YouTube. Nobody's on there. She let me know that YouTube was working great. Good. I do get views on YouTube afterwards. So if you're on there, please make sure you share it and hit that notification bell. That way, every time I come on, you'll get notified and you'll know I'm on. Eventually, we'll start getting some crowds. Eventually, we'll start getting some comments. Eventually, we'll start getting some people calling in. If I can get my uncle to figure out how to call in with his phone system, whatever's wrong with that, that'd make it even better. And eventually, I'll have a nice tagline. So instead of me just saying bye and closing everything down, I'll actually have something cool to say. On that note, thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you next week.